Hey Techno Studs, in this video we're going to talk about how to set up a static IP address on a Linux box, or in this case on a Raspberry Pi. In a Windows box, we typed in ifconfig to find out some of the IP information that was assigned to the computer. In this case right here, we're going to actually type in ifconfig. And ifconfig will bring us up with information about our different network interfaces. And so here we can see that we have three. We have a loopback address, we have a Ethernet 0 address, and a wireless LAN address here. And here we can also see some information that's assigned to it. For instance, with the ETH0, I see that it is a 169.254 number. So it has not received any kind of DHCP address, and it's come up with a random address within this 169.254 address here. It's been on this Pi automatically assigned itself an IP address so it can communicate on this network. So this is what we're going to change. We want to change this because there is no DHCP on this network. We want to assign a statically assigned address to it. So to configure a static IP address, what I'm going to need to do is get into a file and assign a static IP address to it. So in that file is going to be the dhcpd.conf file. So here is where it's located at. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the sudo command because I need elevated permission to get into here and actually change it. And then I'm going to type in nano, and that's the program that I'm going to use to actually edit. So I'm going to type that in there. It's going to come up. And as I scroll through here, there is a section on static IP addresses. So I'll scroll down to this section with static IP addresses. Now notice I have one assigned for the interface wireless LAN 0 here. So that's the wireless LAN that I'm actually remoted into this machine. So that's the network interface that I've assigned a static IP address for that wireless network. And then the ETH0 is the one that we're actually going to assign a static IP address now. So in this configuration file, we have hashtag at the beginning of this, and that hashtag or pound sign or whatever you want to call that hashtag is commenting out that line. And so what that means is that line is not active. So anything that has that hashtag at the beginning of it, that line is not active. So I'm going to go and remove that. Notice that it changes color here. And so what it's doing is now that line is active. So now what it's looking for is, as it's reading this configuration file, it gets to this line right here and says, oh, interface Ethernet 0. Okay, whatever's going to follow after this, that's what I'm going to assign to Ethernet 0. So next I want to assign a IP version 4 static IP address to this. So I'm going to uncomment this line, and then I've got to fill it in with what IP address that I want to assign to it. And so this network that I'm creating, I'm going to put it on this network, and we're going to assign a 10.1.0.3 to this particular machine right here. So I assign it the IP address I want, and that I'm going to make a /8 here. And so that is the network that it's on. Actually, we're going to make that a /24. So we're going to make it a 255.255.255.0 network. All right, I'm going to hold off on the IP version 6 address here. Not going to statically assign that yet. We need a default route. The default route is probably going to be the first address of this network. So I'm going to type in 10.1.0.1. That's the first host address in here. And then it will need a domain DNS entry here. And I don't have one yet on this network, but for now, we'll just put in that same 10.1.0.1. We will probably have to change that later. We'll do a backup of 8.8.8.8. And there, now we've statically assigned a DNS server to this. All right, next what we have to do is we have to save this file. So I'm going to hit Control X to save this file. Do I want to save it? Yes, I do. It asks me what file name do I want to save it as. The default is the file name it was. As you can see here, it says it has that file that we've been editing, so that I want to save it over that. So I hit Enter, and now that is saved. Many of these configuration files don't immediately take effect. In fact, when the service starts up, it addresses the file, but then doesn't go and check up on the file until that service needs to start up again. And so what we could do is, in this case, we can take the DHCP service and restart it, or we can restart the whole machine and that service will get restarted. So in this case right here, I'm going to restart the whole machine. So I'm going to go up to my connection here and go down to log out, and I'm going to say restart or reboot, and then when this comes back up, we'll check to see if the configurations have taken. Now that this machine has rebooted, I'm going to reopen my terminal window here, and I'm going to type in ifconfig once again. We will scroll up to our ETH0. And there we see that this IP address now is statically assigned to this interface.